Right, so who are YouView? YouView are a TV platform in the UK. We launched in 2012. We're owned by, well, we were set up and still are owned by the 4 major public service broadcasters in the UK, plus 2 of the big 4 ISPs in the UK and Arqiva, technology and transmission service provider. So YouView is primarily a set-top box service where we have all the great content from our shareholders, whether that's free content from the public service broadcasters, whether it's pay content such as Champions League football from BT and Sky Cinema channels, etc., from TalkTalk. And we add it with some other content as well, like Netflix, Now TV, and Amazon, and provide this to consumers. We're in about 3 million homes in the UK, so that's over 10% of the market. And our primary route is via the ISPs, via BT and TalkTalk. So there's some examples of our work. But we're also on Sony Bravia TVs, which we've been on since 2015. So that's a bit about us. Now, the question is there too much choice for TV consumers? So quick show of hands. What do you think, everyone? Is there too much choice for consumers? I'm going to ask you this at the end, so I just want to see whether it changes your mind. Okay. All right, so not many think there's too much choice. Interesting, okay. So, you remember this world? Watching TV used to be simple. So if you only had a few channels to watch. If you wanted to see what was on, you had to pick up a paper or a magazine. And if you wanted to record it, actually that bit wasn't so simple, was it? You had to sort of program in times, etc. But life was much simpler back then. Roll forward a few years, then it had changed. It got a little bit more complicated, more choice, and a lot more choice in channels, certainly. That video recorder was replaced by a hard drive, so you didn't have to physically put a tape in a machine, and it could do clever things like remember to record the next episode, etc. Doesn't mean physical media wasn't out the window. You can see in the middle there, you know, Netflix, that's how they started business, sending DVDs in the post. So that was how consumers could, you know, do the equivalent of SVOD back in that day. And something new there on the right. So if you missed watching your favorite shows on live TV, you could get your computer out and start to watch it via a website. So how are things now? Well, they've got a lot more complex, and it's overwhelming for consumers. You know, look at the bottom there. You've got sticks, dongles, pucks. You've got smart TVs. You've got traditional set-top boxes. You know, and that's just in terms of the devices side of things. Things have got very complicated. You've got channels and the channel brands. You've got their apps equivalents. You've got channels that traditionally had gone to pay TV providers now going direct to consumer. There's a whole raft of brands out there and ways to access content, and it is complex for users to navigate around. So are we making the most of this choice? So there's a few stats for you. So out of around the 200 minutes of TV that we watch on average a day, over 80% of that are on the top 5, are on live TV. And 50% of our total viewing, so that's around 100 minutes, is on the top 5 channels. So not that different to when I had that slide earlier with the Betamax recorder. So this is changing, we know it, and we know that linear is coming down, but it's not coming down a great deal. I think 10 minutes was lost last year. But the habits of the younger in particular are certainly making this trend speed up. But I would say it's clear that we're not really making the most of all the choice that we have. Why? So I'm going to come and sit down now.
I'll ask the question.
Okay.
So that's the contention, isn't it? That we're not making enough of the choice. And I guess, what's the evidence for that from your viewers? Why do you say that? Are people unhappy in some way? Are they telling you that they're not getting what they're expecting from the service? What's the feedback?
So, yes, I think it's clear that users do find it overwhelming. When we talk to users frequently, they tell us that. We can see on our platform instrumented with data, so we can see how people are navigating, what they're consuming, and we can see when we introduce new features that kind of address some of these pain points. The features are used and are very much engaged with.
What would be an example of something that you've done then to help people navigate? Okay,
well, maybe if I've got a couple more slides, so if I show this one first of all. So if we boil it down to 3 basic use cases, so when a user watches TV, they know what they want to watch. If they don't, then they're looking for something, they don't know what they want to watch. And there's a third one that doesn't really get talked about that much, which is they don't really care all the time about what they watch. This is, I don't know if people have seen recent research that was conducted by MTM, commissioned by Thinkbox. And this is looking at the need states of users, and it's not always about being highly engaged, leaning forward into the content. I think that piece of research indicated that 26% of the time people just want to switch off, don't really want to care about what it is, don't want to have to make tough decisions, just kind of lean back. It doesn't have to be watching something from the beginning, just something easy to understand and watch. So for me, those are the 3 use cases. And as a platform, that's what we try and address, those three use cases. So when you ask me, are we looking after those users? I don't think we are. I mean, there are a lot of brands out there. It is overwhelming, especially on newer platforms. It's like smart TVs, where there are lots of apps, and it's not really an integrated experience. We can see that's changing now. We've just heard about Apple TV Plus and seen what they've doing already on Apple TV. Android TV, certainly the recent release is a lot more content focused, so it's starting to feel a bit more integrated. But by and large, we haven't really done a good job of that. So they're being pulled in different directions by all these brands. They're being asked to make a lot of decisions about what they want to watch. So if you go into an app, it's, there's this whole sort of structure of stuff you've got to choose, got to watch it from the beginning. As I said, that if you just want to veg out and not make tough decisions, it doesn't really work for you, that. And we can see more often than not, people are sticking with live TV. So I think there's a big opportunity for us to improve that.
So how is YouView going about that? I mean, at the end of the day, you are the platform. You're kind of in charge of a lot of what's going on here. So
yeah,
what are you doing to improve things? Okay,
so we aim to make the complex simple. We aim to address those use cases. So what we call appointment of viewing. Let's try and get users to that content quickly. Whether it is getting them to the football match that's on right now, that's why they've turned on TV. Whether that's about continuing to binge on a box set, whether it's about putting Peppa Pig on for an hour or so for the children, it's about making it easy for users. So we design features that tackle these areas. So that's one area, and also when you're looking for something to watch that you didn't know that you weren't, you're in the mood for discovering something. Then it's very much about making that relevant to who's in front of the TV at that point in time. And we can use things such as, some platforms use profiles to announce who's there. You can use other ways of doing this. You can infer it by working with voice assistants or other ways. At CES this year, there was a lot around cameras in the room to do facial recognition. Personally, I think it's a bit scary, but there are ways to do this. But the point is, try and make those make that discovery experience as relevant as possible. Relevant in terms of what the content is, that it's interesting for the audience there, and also that they're entitled to watch it. Or if they're not entitled to watch it, you're making a conscious decision that this could be something interesting to purchase. So it's cognizant of these sorts of things.
So what is YouView doing at the moment? What of those different techniques are you employing?
Okay, so when we launched in 2012, I mean, it was always our ethos to be a platform that coexisted with all these brands, these broadcaster or TV entertainment brands. And we launched with the backwards guide and search were our sort of key features. So we had search that went across all the content on the platform, a backwards guide which at the time was quite novel and helped people realise, oh yeah, I missed that programme, I can just go backwards a bit, see it there and press play and it will still work. So we've kind of carried that forward, and they were very successful. I mean, I'd say about a quarter of the views on a public service broadcaster application came from that backwards guide launch point, about another 10-15% from search, so clearly successful. And that's our approach, is kind of learn, measure, and then we kind of iterate as we go along. So rolling forward to now, recent features that we've launched have been continue watching and watch lists. And this works across, with the exception of two notable SVOD services, it works across the board with all applications. So if you're watching something on iPlayer, and next time you turn the box on, it will prompt you to pick it up where you left off. And that will be the same across all those players. And that's been hugely successful. Hasn't been launched that long yet, and it's still quite buried, and we're kind of iterating it as we go forward. But already reach of that is about around 15-20%, and as I said, it's quite buried, so we're going to bring that forward, and those that do use it a lot. So it's been very good for us. And then the other thing that we've been experimenting with is promotion of content. So particularly around that content that we know that is easy to watch. People don't have to engage too much, so when they switch off, they can just choose something like and content. We've done a few experiments, some with The Simpsons and Friends and that sort of thing. So when you promote this sort of content at certain times of the day, it makes significant difference to the viewing of those channels, because people are clearly resonating with them. So that's the kind of approach we're taking.
So your content partners must be particularly interested when you decide to focus on a particular show for promotion. I mean, what sort of discussions and negotiations go on behind the scenes there?
Well, some interesting ones. So yeah, I mean, it's a fine balance. We, from our shareholders, we've got 4 public service broadcasters and an ISP on a platform that goes to a consumer. So that's 5 key players. So we do our best to make them all happy and give them equal, give prominence particularly for the public service broadcasters, but give coverage for the ISPs as well, so everyone is happy. But also do that in a way that's not intrusive, makes sense for the user, because if the user's not happy, then it's not going to work for anyone.
There's a difficult balancing act, getting all those.
Yeah.
Keeping everybody happy is always challenging. I think.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, actually, but I wonder if there's any questions from the audience for Sean. Any hands going up? Don't know if I can see any. Doesn't look like it. So let me perhaps just finish, because I think this whole session is about brands, essentially, content brands, and you're in an interesting position. How do you see the relationship between all those brands that you showed up there, and indeed many hundreds of others, evolving? And in particular, how is it that consumers and viewers are understanding what's going on and navigating? I mean, how do you see that whole landscape changing?
I don't think it's going to get any less complex. I think certainly in the last 10 years, 7, 8, 9 years, it's been around ubiquity. So players, applications have been trying to get on all platforms, as many platforms as possible. We've seen that with Netflix, see with BBC and iPlayer in the UK, is just try and get everywhere. And now they're there, they're kind of working on how they can integrate more, work more with platforms like ourselves, so it's not a platform versus player kind of divide or tension. It's actually working, coexisting together, help give utility from the platform side and bring those individual brands to the forefront and work together.
Yep, okay. As you say, it's certainly a very complex world. I know as a viewer, I find it more and more difficult to navigate around, but that's the role that you're playing in the system. So thank you very much, Sean. It's been very interesting and good to have a discussion. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you.